Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to the FutureSox podcast, part of the Just Baseball Media Network. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me always, Mr. James Fox. Tonight, we're going to be getting into the 2026 MLB Draft, the White Sox top 30 with MLB Pipeline's Jim Callis. Let's go ahead and welcome him in. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Great. Can't complain at all. So let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, what's your general feeling on the White Sox rebuild and the hires that Chris Getz has made in the front office?
I think it's positive. This wasn't going to be something they were going to turn around overnight, even though, as we know, Chris Getz was hired because he would speed the turnaround quicker, according to Jerry Reinsdorf, which wasn't Chris's fault that Jerry said that. But no, I think there have been some positive signs. Obviously, 2024 was not a good season in terms of wins and losses, but you look at last year, and yes, to some extent they had to get better. You couldn't get worse, but they improved by 19 wins. They graduated 3 top 100 prospects to the big league club. I don't know, I think they had 8 or 9 other guys they graduated to the big league team. I mean, some of them are going to, not necessarily be superstars, but like they had an influx of talent. They got more guys on the way. I feel like the farm system, while the depth has been thinned out a little bit by all those graduations, it's not destitute. I mean, you still have, 5 top 100 prospects, the number one pick in the draft's coming. They've got some guys who aren't necessarily top 100 prospects who are interesting. And I think one thing's Chris, I hope Chris, like the nice thing about Jerry Reinsdorf is he's very loyal to his employees. So I think Chris Getz is going to get a lot of time to show what he can do. But like, I do hope that he gets to stick around and see the fruits of his labor when they're ready to contend again and still be GM, because I don't think, I mean, people listen to this podcast for White Sox fans, so they probably do to some extent, but like he had a lot to overcome. Even when he came in as farm director, I think it's probably fair to say the White Sox were not the most modern franchise in terms of the way they did things. And he had to, even when he's farm director, not in charge of the organization, kind of get the White Sox more current with the times. And I think he did a good job of that. And I don't think people on the outside realize how much work that was. And similarly, when he took over, it was kind of shocking that Jerry Reinsdorf fired Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, because Jerry Reinsdorf never lets anybody go, ever. And one of the things that Chris Getz did when he became GM is he brought in people from the outside, whether it's Josh Barfield or Brian Bannister or Gene Watson. I'm forgetting names, I'm sure. That wasn't something the White Sox usually did very often. It was just kind of, they had the same people working there forever. And so I think he's done a lot that doesn't necessarily show up in terms of wins and losses, but just in terms of I guess I will poke fun a little bit. I mean, at the press conference where they hired him, Jerry Reinsdorf's referencing Branch Rickey and Connie Mack. I mean, these are guys who were GMs a long, long time ago. And that's kind of the ideal, that Jerry Reinsdorf thinks of for GM. And so I think Chris Getz, not only was he tasked with rebuilding the product you see on the field, the big league roster, like there was a lot of infrastructure and they need to be rebuilt. And it's good to bring in some ideas from the outside rather than. And again, I mean, White Sox have good people work for them. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't, but having the same people and the same ideas year after year after year, that's not productive. Even if you're a successful organization, the Dodgers don't operate that way, or it's just like, we'll just keep everybody here for 20 years because we know what we're doing. So anyway, I'm rambling, but I'm sure I'll ramble several times during this podcast. I just think Chris Getz had a lot to do, and it wasn't just improve the big league club.
Yeah, I think
one that kind of surprised me recently. The one recently, the Carlos Rodriguez one, I was really surprised by because he was just, I don't know, I've just always heard like really good things about him from the Rays, and he signs on to be assistant GM when he had like other job offers in theory. I kind of like that it seems like Chris Getz isn't afraid to hire people who might actually, be, I guess, perceived to be even more qualified than he was, right? Like Kenny Williams never did that. Like, it was just the same people all the time.
No, you're right. I mean, and that was a good one. Like, I think for 2 reasons. One, it's another guy like you said, they're trying to bring in bright minds from the outside, and Chris isn't necessarily thinking, oh, geez, like if things go badly, maybe this guy will get the job. if I'm let go. He's not afraid of that, like you said. And two, I think it's interesting that you had a guy. It's not like they hired him to be the GM of the White Sox. They hired him to be an assistant GM. And Carlos Rodriguez, who you said, like you mentioned, is a very highly regarded guy, found that job attractive. So I think it's good from both those counts.
Yeah, it seems to be that they are creating a welcoming environment for a lot of guys that are generally well liked across Major League Baseball. So that's nice to see. So let's move to the newly released MLB Pipeline White Sox top 30. How did you guys settle on Braden Montgomery as the top prospect?
Yeah, I mean, you could go. I think you could have gone realistically. I mean, they have 5 top 100 guys. I think you realistically could have gone with 3 different guys at number 1. I think Braden Montgomery, who we went with number 1, made the most sense to me. And the way we do the lists at MLB Pipeline is there's more than 3 of us, but for the most part, either me or Jonathan Mayo or Sam Dykstra does the top 30, and we get input from the other people on the staff, but it's pretty much the White Sox. Like not that I'm a tyrant, but Sam and Jonathan could be like, I don't know, man. I think Billy Carlson should be number 1, and I could be like, damn it, I'm doing Braden Montgomery. Like, it's my list. Like, it's not quite like that, but it's more individual. At Baseball America, I think it was more collaborative when I worked there. But we're kind of have our own tracks that we're on, and again, we get input from them. So it was essentially, in the end, my decision to decide who's number 1 to some degree. Although also we vote on the top 100 and then we get feedback, so it's kind of how the top 100 shakes out, if that makes sense. I guess I could feel more strongly that, I'm not explaining this well. We do the top 100 as the launching pad, but as the guy does the White Sox list, if I were to say, you know what, I think Noah Schultz should be ahead of Braden Montgomery, we would do that, type of thing. In any case, this is a terribly non-concise answer. The 3 guys who I think you can make a case for number 1 are Braden Montgomery, Noah Schultz, and Caleb Bonner. I think Braden Montgomery is, to me, the best bet to have a successful long-term major league career. He fits that right field profile. He's a switch hitter with power. He's got the right field arm. The makeup's great. You could argue, I think, that Noah Schultz could have a higher ceiling. We can throw out the Randy Johnson comps again and the wicked slider, and he's 6'10", but pitchers are fragile. And Noah, had knee that bothered him. Not an arm injury last year, but he battled tendonitis throughout the year. It was kind of the first time he got hit around a little bit at times in the minor leagues, and it just kind of was, I think, a reminder that pitchers are fragile. So I agree with the order too. I agree with the order we came out with the top 100. I would go Montgomery over Schultz, but if you want to argue Schultz has a higher ceiling and you want to roll the dice on that, sure, I could see that. I mean, we had Noah Schultz a year ago ranked higher on the top 100 than where Braden Montgomery is right now. And then if you want to go for a little longer term play, like, I would take Montgomery over Bonner if you could go in position player versus position player. But you can make the argument, I think Bonner is a little bit safer bet to hit than Braden Montgomery. He plays on the dirt. It's probably going to want to be in third base, given all the shortstops they have in the organization, whereas Montgomery's an outfielder. So you could make those arguments, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. But I also think he hasn't necessarily accomplished as much as Braden Montgomery and Noah Schultz. And so I would hedge a little bit and do what we did and put him 3rd on the list, if all that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, as someone who, I know you had some questions about Caleb Bonner coming out of high school and draft. How surprised are you, I guess, just about the success that he had in his first minor league season?
Yeah, it's interesting because you tend to be. It's hard sometimes to get over your. It's hard sometimes to get over your prejudices or your, whether you like a guy or don't like a guy, or you're mixed on a guy coming out of the draft. And we Jonathan and I split up the draft. And so we both have roughly half the country, and I have Michigan. So I had Caleb Bonner. And he was a tough one when I was talking to scouts about him, whether it was area scouts or national scouts, because he was very good at some of the showcase events, and he really struggled at other of the showcase events. And it kind of depended on which events you attended as to how much you liked him. And so I think there's the power was there. I think there were some questions on his bat. And there are some questions on what position he'd ultimately play. Well, he comes into pro ball in his first year, and he's Carolina League MVP in his pro debut last year as a 19-year-old in single A. He led the league in on base percentage and slugging, and I think he was right up there in batting too. And even aside from being more consistent at the plate than I think people thought, there might be more of an adjustment because face it, Michigan high school baseball isn't the highest level, but he had no trouble making the transition. I think the most impressive thing when I talked to scouts about him who saw him during the season was he's a lot better defensively than they realized. I felt like at least the guys I talked to, and I talked to a pretty wide swath, felt like he's definitely a third baseman. It wasn't like a Colson Montgomery situation where, okay, Colson Montgomery's a big guy, but he's pretty athletic, so he might be able to play shortstop. I think that it was pretty consensus. Caleb Bonner is going to be a third baseman. And talking to scouts saw him this year, everybody's impression was, wow, this guy's a lot better defensively than I thought he was going to be. Again, you go and play one shortstop, and with Colson Montgomery and Caleb Bonner and Billy Carlson, and we'll throw Roch Cholowsky in there. Not even mention all the other guys in the system. Caleb's probably the fourth best shortstop of that group, but he sounds like he's a legitimate big league shortstop. So I think that's the biggest surprise. And again, like I said, you could make a case for him being the number one prospect in the organization very, very easily, I think.
You mentioned Noah Schultz already. Another guy that gets lumped with him is Hagen Smith, obviously. Just what would you like to see or need to see from them, this year? And then how much time do you think we see in Chicago?
How much time we see in Chicago, I think, just depends on. I don't think the White Sox are going to contend this year, and I think it just depends on how well they master AAA. If one of them's tearing it up, Charlotte's not the easiest place to pitch. It's tough going from Birmingham, which is one better AA parks to pitch in, to Charlotte, which is one of the worst AAA parks to pitch in, especially in the International League. So it's like you kind of have to there's a little bit of exaggeration, but like a 2.5 ERA in Birmingham might be equivalent to almost like a 4 ERA in Charlotte, which is a little extreme, but the numbers definitely get skewed. And then you throw in going from AA, and all of a sudden you're using the ABS system, which squeezes pitchers a little bit more. It's a tough adjustment. But anyway, I think both those guys will just determine that. They're not going to be up right away, but if one or both of them are just destroying the International League April, May into June, at some point you have to say, what's the point of keeping these guys in AAA? I think realistically we're probably talking second half more than anything. Again, once you get past All-Star break, you get into the whole prospect promotion incentive picks to where maybe it behooves you to keep them exactly at 45 days and no more. So then they're rookie eligible next year, and you might get a first round pick for them if they make the opening day roster. But I think the big thing you just want to see is consistency, both in terms of health and just in terms of strikes. Like Noah Schultz, I'll give him a mulligan for last year because I just don't think he ever was consistently himself. Like that knee bothered him most of the year. Because in the past, he not only was dominant, he pounded the strike zone too. I just don't think he was himself. And then with Hagen Smith, I think it was a positive. Early in the year, it was not a positive. Stuff was down. Delivery wasn't working. They had to give him some developmental time, rework some mechanics. But when I saw him in the fall league, and I saw him a couple times down there, he kind of looked like Arkansas Hagen Smith, where he's wiping guys out with a slider. And I do think he's one of those guys, like his stuff isn't as crazy as Jacob Mizorowski, but kind of along the same lines where the stuff's really, really good. So you don't have to have above average control to be a frontline big league pitcher. If you just throw, I don't know, if you have 45 control, you're around the strike zone enough, your stuff is so wicked when you're on that guys aren't going to hit it. And yeah, you might have a few more walks than you'd like, but you aren't giving up hits. Even when he wasn't pitching well, he wasn't really getting hit at Birmingham. So I thought it was one of the most the White Sox had probably about as good an AFL contingent as anybody in terms of the guys they sent and the positive signs they showed. And Hagen Smith just looked like the Hagen Smith I'd seen in Arkansas when I saw him in the fall league. So I think you're just hoping, if you're the White Sox, that those guys stay healthy and Noah Schultz gets back to what he was before his knee started bothering him, and that Hagen Smith continues doing what he did at the end of the year and in the fall league. And then everything will be fine with both those guys.
As the AFL guy at FutureSox that does all the video highlights on the AFL, I was very sad when Noah Schultz said he wasn't going to the AFL. That was very sad.
I was too. The White Sox tried to make it, like you said, even better and send him. And it's funny because I interviewed we interview everybody on media day, and in the last couple of years it's been me, and we interview everybody and do all these videos, like one for each team, so they can put up on the site. There's content, especially for the non-playoff teams. And so we were interviewing Bray Montgomery, and I remember I said something to him like, "Man, I hope we get to see Noah Schultz down here." And he's like, "Nah, you're not going to get him," because I think at that point it wasn't a fit. He hadn't reported yet, but it hadn't said, I don't think clearly, "Hey, he's not coming." And Bray said, "Nah, you're not going to get him down here." And I was like, "Ah." But yeah, that would have been even better.
Yeah, we were looking forward to that when they announced it early. So sticking on the pitching side of things, I am a known early guy on Tanner McDougal. James on the other side is a known early guy on Christian Opper.
Okay. I thought you were
we
going to say
know-
you didn't like Tanner McDougal. I thought you
Oh.
got to get odds over Tanner McDougal. But
Yeah, absolutely not. We both love both of these guys.
Well, you know what? We
but
didn't. So we left Tanner off our preseason top 30 last year. Whoops.
I think we did too. But no, I
It's
mean,
like, you know, it's
the
crazy.
thing was he flashed stuff, but if you remember, that system was a lot deeper because they just made the Crochet trade. They the Rule 5 draft, added guys that way too. I don't think I had Tanner McDougal. I mean, the guy had a 6 ERA the year before, and he'd been hurt early in his career. It wasn't like he screamed sure thing. We didn't have a Poor on the list last year to start the year, and we didn't have Sam Antinachi on the list to start the year, which is, I mean, the lists are constantly evolving. So I wouldn't, none of us should beat ourselves up about Tanner McDougal not being on the list a year ago at this time.
Yeah, that's fair. So obviously Tanner's pretty close to making a dent in the major league team. Christian Opper, obviously a little bit farther away. What do these guys need to do? How important are these two guys to the White Sox system going forward?
No, I think they're really important because, after Schultz and Smith, those are the next two best pitchers. I think they're both guys who could be on the top 100 prospects list this year. They're not that far off. I mean, McDougal, there aren't many pitchers in the minor leagues who can have the ability to both light up a radar gun and spin the ball like McDougal can. I mean, he can hit 101 with fastball, although it's not the best fastball shape, so he's got to command it. And he's always been able to spin the ball. I remember seeing him at the draft combine, the first draft combine in 2021, and he's one of the guys who helped himself the most there. But like, his curveball moves so much that it's hard to hit or land in the strike zone. His slider also has a ton of depth. It's really, really good. And it's kind of like I was saying about Hagen Smith. He doesn't have to have pristine control to be successful. He kind of reminds me, like I wrote this in our write-up, it's kind of like a Grant Taylor profile where it's all power and there's not a lot of finesse. Like, it's kind of fringy strikes. There's not much of a changeup. But like, I think he can just attack hitters, fastball, slider, curveball. And if he throws enough strikes, that's going to be good. And I think I mean, in a lot of organizations, I think he'd be the best lefty in the system. Obviously, in this one, you got Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, but he's really, really good. And again, I know White Sox fans know this. I don't know that fans in general know how good he is. I mean, this could be a guy who could have 3+ pitches once he's a finished product. And he got a lot better last year. I mean, we all know the story. They wanted him out of high school. He's yet another guy who played for their area code games team. They were going to take him in the 11th round of the 2022 draft and overslot him. And the A's took him right ahead of him, 7 picks ahead. And then I guess weren't willing to give him an overslot bonus. They want to go in JUCO. The White Sox got him in the 5th round. And he spent 2 years in rookie ball, first 2 years of pro ball and rookie ball, trying to focus on getting stronger. He wasn't real physical. And then last year he flashed 3+ pitches. I think opponents hit 199 against him. He looked really good. And I think both those guys, like I said, we could see him on the top 100 prospects list at some point this year. I think Apor is kind of one of the sneaky good lefties, one of the better lefties that the average prospect fan doesn't necessarily know about, who's really, really good.
Well, the A's didn't get Opper, but they did get Kyler Murray. And from what I've seen, maybe they can finally get some innings out of him coming forward here.
I will say, I know you're joking. I will make 2 points real quick about Kyler Murray. One, I kind of chuckle. I saw this even, it was happening during the season, like, could Murray rejoin the A's? No, like, you can't take 6 years off or whatever it's been as a hitter and then just walk back in. No, that's not going to happen. But I will defend the pick at the time because he was getting compared to guys. Ricky Henderson comps were a little bit much for me, but he was also getting compared to Andrew McCutchen. And there were other teams that would have taken him in the upper half of the first round. And at the time, he hadn't played quarterback at Oklahoma because he'd been stuck behind Baker Mayfield. And he was a tiny guy. Nobody thought that guy was going to be a high NFL pick, let alone the number one overall pick. And so I thought at the time the pick made sense. The problem was he just exploded in Oklahoma's offense and became the number one pick in the NFL. And even if he'd been a first round pick, he loves football so much he was never going back. But I did not mind the A's who don't have the most resources trying to maybe, find a player, a little bit off the beaten path there. But there were other teams on him. So anyway, don't be ripping the A's for taking Kyler Murray. I liked the pick at the time. It just
he can play.
He can, yeah. It was, what's funny is I remember being at the winter meetings, and Scott Boras will have his, Scott Boras State of the Union, gathering in the lobby with 8,000 reporters around, hanging on every word. I remember hearing him tell somebody. I fortunately, as a prospect writer, I don't have to sit there and like keep up on all the Boras rumors because I'm a beat writer for a team. But I heard him talk about how Kyler Murray was definitely going to report to spring training. This is after he won a fresh after the Heisman Trophy. I remember I think we can talk about it on our podcast. I was like, there's no way, because that guy Kyler Murray would have been first round pick out of high school if he would have signed, but he pulled out of the draft because he wanted to play football at Texas A&M. I was like, now that he knows he's going, we didn't know he's going to be the number one pick, but first round quarterbacks play in the NFL. You also make a lot more money. You don't have to ride. I was like, there's no shot. He's done. Like he's done. But yeah, I've been kind of just like shaking my head this week, seeing headlines. Could Kyler Murray rejoin the A's? And I think the A's are like, oh, we'd welcome him back, sure. But no, he's not going to be playing baseball at this point.
All right, so moving along here, we talked about this guy, I think 2 years ago on when we had you on, and you were telling us how much the White Sox brass absolutely love this guy, Sam Antinachi. Do you think that he's got a similar profile to Chase Maedroth, or is there more upside?
I think yes and yes. I think he does have a similar profile to Chase Maedroth. I think he's got more upside because he hits left-handed. It's funny, like a year ago after they drafted him, the White Sox all loved Sam Antinachi. And, it's funny. Like, so I was thinking about this. His first year as a pro, he's an all-star in the South Atlantic League. He's part of the championship club in Double-A Birmingham. He ranked fourth in the minors on base percentage. And he was like every scout's favorite elite prospect in the fall league, because there were a couple comments. Everybody remarked about how the guy played hard every day, which in the fall league, a lot of those guys are wiped out, especially in their first full season, like Sam Antinachi. They've never played that long. Like you get spring, like you report early to the training base. You might be getting there in January. You go through spring training, then you play through, into September. And then if you go to the fall league, you're playing in November. And a lot of guys, we've all seen it, go to the fall league. And let's just say you aren't necessarily seeing 100% effort every day, or guys are looking very tired. And Sam Antinachi played with constant energy. But one of the comments I liked the most, a scout said, was like everybody hits in the fall league. The fall league, there's not a lot of good pitching. Hagen Smith, rare exception. And the fall league is a very offensive-minded league. And one scout I was talking to said, what impressed him about Sam Antinachi hit everyone. He didn't just hit the bad pitching in the league, he hit the better pitching in the league. And, he's an on-base guy. He's not, it's probably a fringy runner, average arm, which limits he's not a shortstop. I think he's a second baseman. The third base seems to me to be a stretch. There's not a ton of power there, but I think the floor is he's that kind of gritty, left-handed hitting utility man who can play second, play third, fill in at short, and he might be an everyday guy. Now, it's going to be tough to be an infielder for the White Sox in like looking down the road, because you got Colson Montgomery for sure is already there. He's obviously a building block. You've got, behind him, we just talked about Caleb Bonham. You've got Billy Carlson, who I'm sure we'll talk about more in a minute, who some scouts say is the best high school defensive shortstop they've ever seen. He probably has 20 homer power. And they're like, it looks like, as of right now, Roch Cholowsky is the front runner to go number 1 in the draft. If it's not Roch Cholowsky, the top 4 prospects in the draft are all shortstops. So White Sox almost certainly are going to be drafting another shortstop. So, if you have Montgomery, Bonham, Carlson, Cholowsky, I don't like. I don't know where Sam Antinachi. Sam Antinachi probably has to be a utility guy in that team, because that's 4 guys for 3 spots, really.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
I mean, it's a cool problem to have. And the nice thing is they're kind of spaced out. I think Billy Carlson's bat's gonna need some time. Bonham, as good as he was last year, he's probably realistically 2 years away. Billy Carlson's probably 2 or 3 years away. Rock Chilowsky could probably play in the big leagues in 2027. So you're not going to have them all crashing into Chicago at the same time, where you have to figure that out. But yeah, it's Sam Antinachi. I think anybody, not that the White Sox are trading prospects, but anybody talks trade with the White Sox, they always ask about Sam Antinachi.
Yep. Thanks for catching me on that. I said 2 years ago. I was thinking after the draft, but it was preseason last year.
Well, it's fair. I mean, it was 2 seasons ago. It was after his first season. Now he's going to his third. So you're good.
So, do you want to hit the? These are your guys, James. So, do you want to hit the next one?
Yeah, my interesting arms that I always paid attention. So Matthias Lacombe, I thought has been fascinating since they took him. I remember all the stories about him wanting to be the first like French-born guy, and then he was in Arizona for like what seemed like 2 years, and then last year,
right?
Well, I mean, last year he finally, he was in full season looking pretty good. So him, and then Blake Larson, who obviously went down with Tommy John, but they've said the same things at the White Sox. Like he got to add strength and whatnot. What do you think those guys need to show this season? And I think they're in like that 15 to 20 range in the system right now. It seems like.
Yeah, I put Larson 16, Lacombe 17. I think they're both upwardly mobile guys who could move up the list, and we could be talking about them like we're talking about McDougal and a poor. Maybe we're talking about Larson and Lacombe like that in a year or two. Larson was one of my favorite. I don't know what best way to phrase this, like non-first round high school arms in the 2024 draft. Like he needs to throw more strikes. But I like the stuff. The fastball is lively. His mid-90s fastball is lively. He's a high-spin slider. He's been compared to Max Fried, Shane McClanahan, Chris Sale. Those are pretty good lefties to be compared to. So I'm curious to see what he'll do when he's healthy. And it's Tommy John, so you feel good about that. And again, I mean, you're right. Lacombe was like a 2023 pick, and it seemed like he almost could have bought a house in Glendale because he was there for so long. Because he had, I think, a shoulder impingement and then a lat issue. He didn't even make a debut until last year. It'll be interesting. I think he still needs more polish. He was really good in the Arizona Complex League. He struggled some in terms of throwing strikes in single A. But again, he's mid-90s up to 98 with good carry on the fastball. His slider's gotten better. He's got a splitter changeup that is pretty good when it's on. That needs consistency. So I mean, both those guys are going to need some time to develop, but they can be pretty good in a couple of years, I think.
So I know you generally feel like you let guys start for like as long as they can start, right? But like in the White Sox position, you have a guy like Matthias Lacombe. Like when you get right up against that, like Rule 5, whatever, like is there a chance that they just like scrap this thing and throw him in the bullpen potentially if you have to like potentially protect him soon anyway?
Yeah. What now is he? I always struggle
I think he's 26. I think because it's 4 years right out of college, junior college. So
well, no, it depends on your age, whether you were 18 or 19 when you signed.
Yeah.
So he was older because he was 21 when they signed.
Yeah, so I feel like it's December, but
yeah, it's like I would say what you're saying makes sense in a lot of cases, but they're so far away from contention that I don't think they're going to try to do that. Like you have to. He's barely pitched. He's pitched. I'm looking at 53 innings in pro ball, so you can't. You can't expedite. There's no way you can expedite that guy to the big leagues by putting him in the bullpen this year. It's just not. That's not going to work. So, I think the flip side of it is I can't see that guy's a tough guy to Rule 5 just because he's so far away from the big leagues. So I don't think I think they're going to let him start because he needs to get even if you want to expedite him, he needs innings more than anything else. So, but I don't think they'd really lose him. I don't think they'd really lose him in the Rule 5 draft.
Well, we probably said that about Jetixon Paez and Alexander Alberto that the White Sox just picked up in the Rule 5 that never pitched above Advanced A. So,
yeah, I mean, although I will say, as interesting as Lacombe is, and I do have him ranked ahead of those guys, you can make a case that Paez has about as good a control as anybody in the minor leagues. He's on the very short list. And you can make a case that Alberto has one of the most unhittable fastball. I mean, those guys both have an outlier skill. And I don't know that Lacombe has that. So we'll see. I mean, I know with Alberto, I was talking to White Sox about him, and they said they were talking to a lot of their hitters. Like, they'll ask their hitters, and their pitchers, like, who are the toughest guys you faced? And a lot of their hitters talked about how nasty Alberto was. Well, I mean, he basically has the Emmanuel Clase upper 90s fastball with natural cut. So yeah, I'd be Matthias Way, and again, we have to see how this year, progressed. But like the thing is, if Matthias Lacombe really pops this year, you can put him on the 40-man roster also and protect him.
Yeah. One of the things that we really struggle with is like ranking new international guys and even guys with numbers in the DSL, right? And I know you talk about it. You talk about it too, Jim. But like you did rank Sebastian Romero and Francisco Graterol. Does that have more to do with just the fact that this is like a middle of the pack system, or is this something where like you reached out to and the White Sox are actually kind of high on these guys and they rank where they do, with your input that you've gotten?
Yeah, and we get input like from other guys, like Jesse Bork puts together an international list, so he gets a lot of information on these guys too from other clubs. I mean, it's some of all that. I mean, I think if you had, let's say, the White Sox didn't graduate however many guys it was, 9 guys or so off last year's list, and they had like the number 5 farm system. Graterol, who I put at 28, probably doesn't make the list. Romero I have at 20. Romero probably would have made it. I mean, I'm with you. It's hard to rank these guys. It's hard to rank them even when they play in the DSL because I don't know how meaningful DSL stats really are. Even like I'll read sometimes you'll read reports on sites like, oh, like somebody made good swing decisions in DSL. Like guys throw balls, they're like a foot off the plate. Like I might make good swing decisions in DSL. So it's hard to even read too much into like strike zone discipline or any of that or power when these guys are 17 years old. I just Romero sounds interesting, even though Graterol got more money. I like, and again, I mean, we just don't know. But when you're talking about international players, I want the guys who people talk about having advanced bats. Like everybody, is projectable and athletic for the most part. And you could dream that the guy's going to get bigger and stronger and faster and all this, which is true. I mean, these guys are super young. That happens. So I want the guys, if I could pick one trait, give me the guys we think are going to hit. And Sebastian Romero sounds like he can hit. Like he's, played, when they played in game action, he put together good at-bats. He is projectable and athletic and all that stuff. But I like the bat. And with Graterol, I think he's more power over hit. He's kind of power over hit and arm over receive. Although I think most 17-year-old catchers are probably arm over receive. But yeah, I mean, I just looked at him as like there's a catcher with 20 homer potential. And you get to the end of the list, it was, whether it's a good list, a bad list, middle of the pack list, when you get to the, wherever you draw the line, like, and how deep do you guys go? Or do you guys just rank as many as you want?
We do 30.
Yeah. Like, so as you know, so the same thing we do. When you do 30, whether it's great system, bad system, in between system, the guys from say 21 to 40 are all about the same in terms of how good they are as prospects. It's just, what do you like? What profile do you like? What guy do you like? What nugget do you have on a guy? And 21 through 30 make the list, and 31 through 40 are probably just as good and they don't make the list. So you can argue it either way. But yeah, I mean, I heard enough about Graterol, and I was like, okay, 20 homer catcher. Yeah, but again, I mean, if you want to argue for, 5 or 6 other guys over a DSL catcher who's never played, you could definitely do that. Like, 'cause like you said, like, how do you know? Like you don't. Like, I'm looking, my next couple guys are like Ryan Burroughs and Luis Reyes and Duncan Davitt. Like, sure, you could argue all those guys over him pretty easily.
So speaking of those fringe guys, is anybody that we didn't mention leading up to this point that you are high on, or that you've got something that you specifically would like to point out on them?
I don't know. I mean, Mason Adams and our guy with Tommy John. Like, I think he's kind of the polish over stuff guy with a really good breaking stuff. I like him. I mean, he's 26. He's coming off Tommy John. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but I think there's something there. I think he swings and misses too much, but he just turned 20. I still am very intrigued by George Wolkow, who, had he gone to college, would be entering his sophomore year right now. And he's already played, in single A, and he's got 27 homers to his credit. So I give him, yes, he needs to get better at swing decisions and that type of stuff. He's also young, and I love the makeup. So he still intrigues me. And then, we touched on him a little bit. That fastball of Alexander Alberto, like, it's tough to take a guy who's pitched 35 innings above single A in the Rule 5 draft, but I think Alexander Alberto might stick. Like, just his fastball is unhittable. And I think it's going to play in the big league. So I'm really interested to see, this 6'8" guy with all that extension and natural action on his fastball. That I think that's going to be a fun one to watch.
A little tidbit here. When we grabbed Alberto in the Rule 5, our Advanced A play-by-play guy texted me and said, "I love that guy." So, I mean, a bunch of people do like him.
Well, like I said, the White Sox talked to their players, and a bunch of their hitters were like, "This guy's basically a hit." I mean, it's 96 to 98 up to 101 with natural cut. Oh, and by the way, he's 6'8", and he throws from the low 3/4. Yeah, the low 3/4 arm slot. So he's got elite extension and also like wide angle and a flat approach. Like, good luck. Like, it'd be hard enough to hit that fastball if he just came out of like a normal 3/4 slot. Like, I'm just telling you, like, hitters don't see a fastball shaped like that come out of a release point like that almost ever. So I think he's going to be interesting. Like, even if he struggles through strikes, I think you just keep that. You can get that guy enough innings. Like, he's older. He's older. He was signed back in 2019, but super interesting guy.
So, you want to move to the draft portion of our talk here, James?
Yeah, I mean, we're like 35 minutes in. We're finally gonna ask Jim Callis about Roch Cholowsky. So, just obviously, for anybody that listens to you guys regularly, you guys have like an official Rock Watch, right? So,
Yep.
yeah. So just quick scouting report on Roch Cholowsky. If he's like still the no doubt number one pick, and then the importance of the White Sox having this pick.
Yeah, he is still the clear favorite to go number one. I mean, you're talking about a guy who could have 4+ tools. Like, the only thing he doesn't do great is run. And we had him on our podcast a couple weeks ago, and he's working on his running. But it could be, we've got 60 hits, 60 power, 60 arms, 60 field, which is pretty good. The makeup's good. His dad played, got to AAA. His dad's a scout. He's going to be another one of these bloodlines guys who gets acclimated to pro ball real quick. I mean, I keep trying out. I've got my Rock Chilowsky, shtick down pack, but he's probably the most consensus 1-1 guy at this point of the process since Adley Rutschman was back in 2019. I think he's the best all-around college shortstop since at least Troy Tulowitzki, and that's going back 21 years. Yeah, I think he's the guy. Now, what's funny is Grady Emerson's really good, the guy we have ranked number 2, the high school shortstop out of Texas. And he just gets overshadowed by Rock. And, and then you got Justin LeBron, Jacob Lombard, and other guys. But no, I do think he's the guy. I told the White Sox this. I was glad they won the lottery, because I do not like the prohibition that if, like, you're not a revenue sharing recipient, it's not like the White Sox are the wealthiest of clubs. You can only win the lottery one year in a row. The White Sox didn't win the lottery. They moved back. in 2024. So I don't know how that counts as winning lottery. They were in the lottery, but they moved backwards. And so they weren't allowed to be eligible for the number one pick in 2025. Now, in an odd sort of way, if this is the rule we're going to have, I guess it's better to have the number one pick in 2026 than it was in 2025. So it's going to work out. They're going to get Roch Cholowsky. Plus, we don't know what the bonus pools are going to be, but they're going to have a huge bonus pool as well. That pick's going to will probably be worth close to $12 million by itself. And as good as Rock Chilowski is, he's not getting $12 million bonus. I don't even know. You get into the whole dynamic of like, okay, could he set the all-time bonus record of 9.3 million? Okay, he could. He will. I'm sure he will do that. But like, if you offer Rock Cholowsky $9.5 million versus say 10 or 10.5, like he's not going back to UCLA for if you offer him $9.5 million. So they're going to have a bunch of money to play with for their subsequent picks as well. So I do think he's a prohibitive favorite. I was joking when I was doing the White Sox list, especially when I was talking to Mike Shirley. I was like, hey, I can put Roch Cholowsky and Landon Tomei on this list, right? And we all made the joke. Everybody knows the Roch Cholowsky is the clear number one right now. Everybody knows the White Sox love Landon Tomei. So like I'm sure Mike Shirley's heard those jokes a million times. But yeah, it's like, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be interesting. Like if you take Roch Cholowsky or if you take Grady Emerson, but Roch Cholowsky, how are we deploying these guys around the diamond in the future? Like my guess would be that you'd have, assuming all these guys hit well enough playing, but like Billy Carlson, the bat's a little bit of a question, but Billy Carlson's the best defensive shortstop guys we've seen. So Billy Carlson's my shortstop. Roch Cholowsky's my second baseman. Colson Montgomery's my third baseman. And Caleb Bonner is going to have to play the outfield, I guess. But it's going to be a fun problem to have.
Yeah, we've talked about that because it seems like Cholowsky will likely beat Carlson to the big league. So even though Carlson's the better shortstop, if Rock's already there and he looks like your franchise player, I don't know. I hope we get to that point, right? You could always trade Billy Carlson. So that would be...
You could. I just think if Billy Carlson hits enough to be a regular, I've never heard such glowing reviews about a defender. I don't know how you don't play that guy shortstop. There's just... That would be like playing Jeter shortstop and moving A-Rod to third. A big part of Billy Carlson's value is that he's got the best glove some guys have ever seen. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Colson Montgomery's not a bad shortstop either. But you're right. Like, I do think I can see Rock pushing Colson Montgomery over to third base when Rock arrives in Chicago in mid-27 or whatever we want to say. And then it'll be interesting when Billy Carlson's ready.
When you guys did the on the MLB Pipeline podcast, you guys did the top 10s at every position, and you guys were remarking how nobody had like 3 outfielders in the same top 10 list since for like years, and like this year I think there was one. I don't remember who it was.
I think the Dodgers, right?
The Dodgers, I don't know if did Soroka make the... Oh, no, it was, yeah, because they had DePaula, Zaire Hope, and Eduardo Contreras. So you want to make a Dodgers-White Sox trade? Because they're both there in Glendale. Trade a shortstop for an outfielder?
Yeah, we've done that before, and I don't know. We'll see. I had dreams in my head that possibly the White Sox, if they got Roch Cholowsky, could possibly have 3 in the top 10, which at shortstop, which would be absolutely absurd.
It would be absurd, and I do think it's possible because a lot of the shortstops were currently on the list. There are obviously a lot of shortstops on the top 100 are going to graduate to the big leagues this year, and I think Caleb Bonner, if he develops as expected this year, is going to be a top 10 shortstop. Rock would, and if Billy Carlson hits, he's going to be. You're right. I mean, I don't know the last time anybody had like 3. The shortstop one's tough because the top 10 shortstops are probably all going to be in the top 25 or 30 prospects in baseball, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't think there's any way it could happen, but a man can dream.
Yep. Fair.
Yeah. So there's like swing. I mean, obviously there's like swing questions about Billy Carlson. Like we've all heard like the same things, right? And it's obviously not like Connor Griffith, right? I mean, I'm not crazy, but if Billy Carlson like hits at all, I mean, he's like a top 50 prospect in baseball, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the glove's that good. Now, the thing is with those guys, with Connor Griffin, I mean, somebody should do a deep dive in this. Like everybody knows, we've talked about it. A lot of people talk about it. They were just teams. It makes people feel better with the White Sox. The only team ahead of the Pirates that was considering taking Connor Griffin and thought Connor Griffin was better than Bryce Rayner, who went 11th to the Tigers, was the White Sox. Like, if anybody was going to take him before the Pirates, it was going to be the White Sox, because everybody thought his swing wasn't going to play. And I wonder, I might be oversimplifying this. He had a shoulder injury when he was on the showcase circuit. And the showcase circuit is where you're getting all your, advanced metrics and data and breaking down swing. Like, they don't having, super technology at Jackson Prep in Mississippi. You're getting that from the showcase circuit. And so I wonder if his swing just wasn't at its best because his shoulder was bothering him. And that led teams to, like, I don't know if it was different then. Because I was watching, I did today we recorded they announced the preliminary player pools for the spring breakout game. And I came on around 15 minutes in the show. But before me, Connor Griffin was on the show. So I was watching his interview. And Harold Reynolds was showing film of Connor with Team USA in high school and Connor now. And he's more physical, but the swing doesn't look that different. So I don't know. But I had teams that flat out told me that swing will not play in pro ball. And it looks like that swing will play in pro ball. With Billy, I think what the issue is, one of the issues is he just tinkers too much. Like he tinkers with his swing, he tinkers with his setup. There's a lot going on. And you never like to hear when you're taking the guy in the first round, like, oh man, you got to change his swing. Like, that's kind of frightening. But talking to people, like, before leading up to the draft, a lot of people felt like, look, this is a relatively easy fix. This isn't like, oh, it's a horrible swing and we've got to do a total makeover. It's more like we just got to change a couple things that are easy fixes and get him to just stick with it, and he should be okay. So we'll see. Like again, you got the whole swing decision issue too. Like, is he really disciplined or is he passive? Which one is it? So there's some questions, but I don't think hearing, oh, we got to redo his swing, like when you did dive deeper or you can talk to people, that's not as frightening as it is at first glance. Like, oh, we took this guy at 10 and he has to redo his swing. And again, if he, I mean, it's hard to quantify the defense, but let's say he's as good defensively as everybody says he is. This guy's like a slam dunk Gold Glover. If he hits 230 with 15 homers and plays Gold Glove defense at shortstop, that's a good big league player. So we'll see. That's one of the things I think I'm most curious to see. Not that this year will determine his entire future, but like, how well will Billy Carlson hit in pro ball? I'm curious to see that.
So you mentioned Landon Tomey. I mean, obviously, like, I think you had it in a mailbag last week. We've been talking about it. Like, we know the area codes thing. And so, like, something I've been kind of saying, and I'm glad I have you here to, like, help me. I've kind of felt like with the amount of money they're going to have, like, they can do better than that at 41. But, like, how similar is he to, like, a Bonham or a Foskey there? And I'm like, I just kind of feel like they can go to 4 or 5 million potentially at that spot, and Tomey doesn't really seem like that guy yet.
No, I mean, James, that is a great point. 100%. They could do that because they're going to have a bigger player pool. And like I said, you're going to save $2 million on Roch Cholowsky. Like, he's going to break the bonus record, and you're going to save $2 million. So you're going to have all kinds of money. Now, you could give $4 million plus to the second pick or spread it, however. But that is a good point. Now, the flip side of it is, everybody kind of loves Landon Tomey. I don't think he's going to get to that pick necessarily. I'll put it this way. I think if you told Mike Shirley in the White Sox, you can have Landon Tomey, like we'll play, let's make a deal. We don't look like it's what's today? March 5th. It's March 5th. You can have Landon Tomey with that pick. Or you can wait and see how the draft plays out. It'd be an interesting decision. I think they might take Landon Tomey because they could still spend the money elsewhere in the third round pick. And like, everybody loves Landon Tomey. Everybody loves the kid. There were guys, I think people liked him better than they liked Jaden Fauske, who they're obviously on the same team last year. The difference between him and Bonham and Fauske, who were all, area code guys, as was Apor was, Larson was, Wolkow was. I joked that they could combine both their loves, which is take the injured SEC right-hander and the area code guy, just go get Carson Wiggins, who's got crazy stuff and is out with Tommy John. But yeah, the thing is, he's a better hitter. I think people feel better about his bat, like hit and power, than Bonham and Fauske. He's not as athletic. And the big question is, would tell me is, okay, what position is he? He's not a shortstop. Can he play second? Can he play third? He's more athletic than his dad. And then, his dad was obviously a great player, but was not. His dad was a JUCO shortstop, but wound up being a first baseman DH. In the long run, is Landon a left fielder? Here's the thing: we just talked about how they have all these shortstops. If Landon Tomey gets drafted by the White Sox and winds up being good, he's playing first base or outfield corner. I don't see what the scenario is where he winds up at second, no matter how good he is defensively. Like, if let's say he could be an average second baseman or an average third baseman, he's still not going to play those positions for the White Sox of the future. But yeah, it's what you said, James, is exactly right. And but I will say, it's hard to push guys down in the draft. Like, you can, I'll give you an example. Last year, so what Nationals were in this exact same position last year? They took Eli Willis, number one, who was a little bit of a surprise, but there are also teams who thought he was the best player in the draft. Got a bunch of money, but they saved a bunch of money. They were going to take Slater DeBrun and give Slater DeBrun a bunch of money with the second round pick. He didn't get to their pick. The Orioles were like, no, we'll take Slater DeBrun. Because what it comes down to is, if you have money, in a lot of these cases, let's say I'm offering $4.5 million to a guy. That's great. Like, hey, get to our pick. We'll give you $4.5 million. We're going to make this happen. But let's say I'm a team with multiple picks and I'm picking in 30s, and I like the guy and I pick him and I offer him $3.5 million. Is he really turning that down to go to college? If he's a college player, I don't know how. He can't turn that down and go back for his senior year. So it's not always easy to just say, hey, I've got the most money, I'm going to push guys down. It's more the guys you're convicted on. And everybody likes Landon Tomey, but let's say there's a third rounder that the White Sox love more than everybody else, and who's going to fit in that range. The White Sox can kind of guarantee they'll get that guy. But that second pick, it's not easy necessarily to push the guy through the gauntlet to get him to you. But it is, James, a great point that I think I joked. I even joked with Shirley, hey, you're just going to give Landon Tomey $2,997,500. That's what you guys do, right? But they can go higher than that and still have money to spend later in the draft.
Yeah, this is a scenario that we've been going over in our heads for a while now, because we weren't 100%, pot committed to Landon Tomey just getting drafted in the second because he's, White Sox adjacent. Will Gasparino and former White Sox draft pick Miles Bailey, do you think that they would be available at 41, or are they going to outplay that and not even be available there either?
Miles Bailey will, for sure, because he's got power, but he's a first base only. I like Miles Bailey. The White Sox will do better than that with that pick. Miles Bailey. Then again, I think I looked because I knew you guys were going to ask me about him. I was like, oh man, is Miles Bailey going off? Because you lumped him with Gasparino. I was like, does he have 10 or 11 home runs? What's going on?
No.
Yeah. He's okay, but Miles Bailey to me is more. It's hard to take those first base only guys. To me, and I like Miles Bailey for what he is. I actually saw him. I went to the Florida State, Oregon State Super Regional last year, and he can hit the ball very far, but he's a 6'4", 260 pounds. So we're talking first base DH. Those are our two options.
Yeah.
I don't think you take that guy with your second pick unless he goes out and hits 30-something homers this year and you decide he's a 40 home run guy or something. Gasparino is going to be interesting because he's got, I've lost track. Is it 10 homers right now?
Yeah.
He's on the same team with Roch Cholowsky. That team's loaded. They're going to get seen a lot. He was a dude in high school who was athletic, but there was swing and miss. Wanted to go to Texas. And he was okay there, but he didn't tear up the SEC. Now he's at UCLA. He's off to a great start. The number one team in the country. They played, I think I was reading today, they've already beaten 6 ranked teams this year. They played as good a schedule as anybody in the country. We're all here in Big Ten country. Big Ten's not bad baseball. It's not the SEC. It's not the ACC. So I would suspect that Will Gasparino is probably going to tear up the Big Ten when they get into conference play. I think there's still, just because of the hot start, I don't think everybody's like, okay, yeah, he's slam dunk. He's 100% going to hit. He's definitely raised his profile. You feel better about him. I think there's going to be a lot of teams pouring over the data, looking at, I don't have it in front of me, what are the swing decisions? What's the swing and miss? But yeah, he's off to a really, really good start. He'd be interested. He's a hard one to predict where he's going to go in the draft because he did not make our preseason top 100 because of the swing and miss issues. He's on our radar. And obviously he would now but we still have 40 plus games plus a postseason to go in college baseball. So like, is Will Gasparino going to hit 380 with 35 homers, or does he cool off? We're gonna have to see how all that plays out.
Yeah, I don't think Gasparino is going to have a Pete Incaviglia year or anything like that. But I mean,
he's on pace. So,
yeah.
So last one, Jim. Just any like when? Do we know when the draft is? I mean, I know it's like the weekend of like heading into the All-Star break, right? But is it Saturday, Sunday instead of
it is
Sunday,
Saturday.
Monday?
It is Saturday, Sunday. There's still, I don't think this part's resolved yet. Some question as to how many rounds are going to be on Saturday. I know. Okay, I have this. I made myself a note. So Saturday, we can mark our calendars now. It's going to start at 12:30 Central Time on Saturday, which unfortunately there's going to be a lot of baseball games.
Yeah,
going on.
there's games on.
Yeah, I'm not in charge of these decisions, so I'm just giving you the news. Day 2 is going to be also. I assume we're going to start early because they're going to have several rounds. This is not official. There's been a lot of chatter. I don't know when it's going to be decided. We could have 5 rounds on day 1 and 15 rounds on day 2.
Keep on changing it every year.
I thought the whole point was putting it in prime time, Jim. I know this is not a you decision. I just, it's kind of strange.
I will just say, I don't think this will give into. If you had 30 teams vote unanimously to put the draft back sometime in June.
I know.
But they don't. It's not their decision.
Yeah.
So last thing, I guess, just toss out there. Any thoughts on any of the White Sox previous drafts? Like anything looking back now? I mean, obviously the Connor Griffin thing probably stands out, but other thoughts?
I think I always think you have to look at the draft in the context of what was going on at the time. And honestly, like, it's funny if they'd taken Connor. I can't fault them for not taking Connor Griffin, because if they took Connor Griffin, I honestly think if other teams were being honest with you, they would have said, "Man, the White Sox, that's a terrible pick. They reached on that guy. The guy's not going to hit." I don't know. Like, looking back at 2024, it'll still be interesting. Like, the 3 guys I think they were ultimately looking at were Caglione, who chases a ton. And I'm sure when he got to the big leagues, White Sox fans are like, "Man, why didn't we take that guy? Hagen Smith isn't throwing strikes." And then Cags just got beat up in pro ball. So I'll be very curious to see how the Cags versus Hagen Smith plays out. But that 2024 draft, just looking at it, I mean, with Hagen Smith, with Caleb Bonner in the 2nd round, Blake Larson we all like in the 3rd round, Sam Antinachi in the 5th round, like, that's looking super promising. I'm reviewing these 2023. Yeah, I mean, 2023 was rough because they picked 15th, and we all know that Matt Shaw went 13th, and Kyle Teal went 14th, and Jacob Gonzalez went 15th, and that one's probably not going to pan out. But they got Grant Taylor in the 2nd round. They got a Poor in the 5th round. I still like the rolling the dice on Wolkow in the 7th round. They got Matthias Lacombe in the 12th round. So, like, they may have whiffed on the 1st rounder there, but I think that still looks like it's a pretty promising draft. 22, they've gotten some other big leaguers out of it. Jonathan Cannon, Tim Elko got a cup of coffee. We may see Tyler Schweitzer this year. Brooks Baldwin's been up. Mason Adams. But that one's probably going to come down to how good Noah Schultz is. And Noah Schultz, like, has a chance to be pretty good. So I don't know, like, just going back and looking at these, they look pretty interesting. You look at 21, Colson Montgomery looks like a very good pick. I don't know. Tanner McDougal in the 5th round, very good pick. They may not get a whole lot else, but that could be 2 really good picks right there. So just looking at these, and yes, I have to look them up because I can no longer remember who drafted whom in what year. There's too many drafts in too many years. Like, those look like some pretty solid, consistently solid drafts, to be honest.
Yeah, this one will be Mike Shirley's 7th draft, and I think it'll be 3 left-handed pitchers and 4 shortstops in the 1st round.
So was Crochet his first draft?
Yeah, that was his first one.
That's a pretty
So
good one too.
Crochet, Schultz, Hagen, and then Jacob Gonzalez and the other, and Carlson, Cholowsky, and Colson Montgomery. So
Yeah, so you have to give him credit for Crochet because he pitched, what was it, 3 innings that year before the pandemic? Like he had the minor injury. Like they didn't have a whole lot to go off on. And you got to give him credit for Colson Montgomery because the people who pound the table that you can't draft a 19-year-old high schooler, like, oh, Colson Montgomery is 19.
yeah.
Colson Montgomery looked pretty good last year. So like they've not been afraid to go against the grain. I don't think anybody really had Noah Schultz as a first rounder because he pitched 4 innings at Oswego East because he had mono that year. I mean, I know he pitched in the prospect league, but like they have not been afraid to buck convention, and the picks look pretty good.
So I remember I went out to Schaumburg and I saw Crochet pitch at the alternate site. And a
Right.
staffer there had told me, like, don't be surprised if this guy pitches in the big leagues this year. And I'm like, no chance,
And that was a playoff
And-
team. That wasn't
and
just
then-
like
yeah.
a nothing team.
And then a week later, he's in Cincinnati pumping 101 like out of the bullpen. I was like, oh my goodness.
That was so fun.
No, it really was. I mean, but like I said, it was funny because I think I can't remember if it was shoulder. He had like a minor injury. It was more precaution. It wasn't anything that wound up having surgery, but he missed the first 3 weeks of the season. And then I think he pitched on that Wednesday. And I don't know, a Tuesday or Wednesday midweek game. I don't know if it was because COVID kind of came out of the blue. Like we knew COVID was out there. Nobody really knew what to make of it. I remember being in spring training. I was getting ready to go to Arizona. I'd been in Florida. I was getting ready to go to Arizona. And all of a sudden, like that Wednesday evening, when the president spoke, it was like, oh, like everything's shutting down immediately. Rudy Gobert, Tom Hanks, and Rita Wilson all have COVID. Like, what's going on? And but anyway, so I don't know if Tennessee pitched him because they felt like, oh, the world might be coming to an end, or it was just like, we'll ease him back in. But like, we were this close to Garrett Crochet not even pitching that year, and the White Sox took him. I think what was it, the 11th pick?
I don't even remember. 5.
It was the 11th pick.
Yeah.
And
that draft is
much better. I was gonna say, you look at the 10 guys picked ahead of him. Like I'm looking at this on Baseball Reference right now. Garrett Crochet has 12.2 WAR at this point in his career. The rest of these guys, I have to do a bunch of subtraction here.
It's not good.
I think I have 4.5 WAR between them. Yeah, like it's so far not very good.
Yeah, that part I remembered. I just couldn't remember what pick he got picked at. All right, it's always a pleasure having you on, Jim. It's one of my favorite that we do every year. Do you want to let people know where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. It's most of my, well, I shouldn't say most of all my, if it's appearing elsewhere, I don't know about. All my stuff appears at MLB Pipeline, which is part of MLB.com. We have a really good team there. And when I plug, I always say the nice thing about our site is because we work for MLB and they're trying to promote the game and grow the game and create interest. It's all free. None of it's behind a paywall. All of our rankings, all of our grades, our videos, everything, 100% is free. So you can check that out. And then I try to tweet about a lot of what I do and a lot of what we do at my Twitter account, which is Jim Callis MLB. But yeah, so we just got done with top 30s. Farm system rankings will be out. We're talking Thursday night. I think they just went live maybe an hour ago. Those are coming out, and then it's off to spring training, and then before we know it, we'll in spring breakout, and then before we know it, it'll be back into the draft, kind of nonstop for about 3 months.
Awesome. Thanks for hopping on. We really appreciate it.
No, I always enjoy it. You guys always ask good questions. It's fun. I know we just did an hour. We could probably go 2 hours, but we all have to get back to our lives. So
yeah, I had to start trimming things here. For my co-host, Mr. James Fox, at JamesFox917 on Twitter. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. We appreciate all you guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you to our guest, Jim Callis. We appreciate you as well. Have a great time. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.